This is a documentary about hunting, depicting the real lives of hunters in the mountains. To survive this harsh and protracted winter, Rich ventured into the mountains to hunt a black-tailed deer, ensuring he and his wife would have a stable food source. Once heavy snowfall blocked the mountain passes. After locating the black-tailed deer, Rich wasted no words. He pulled the trigger swiftly and decisively. The heavy snowfall severely hampered his vision. He wasn't even sure if he'd hit his target. Perhaps he had secretly practiced his marksmanship, or maybe luck was on his side. Against the odds, Rich felled the deer with a single shot. This male black-tailed deer would provide Rich with approximately 40 gin, around 44 pounds, of venison. For a compassionate hunter like him, having to kill a deer for its meat is a sorrowful necessity. Yet to survive in this wilderness, it must be done. He processed the deer, and by then, dusk was approaching. Rich hurried back to camp. To protect his hard-won prize, he used a pulley system to hoist the venison high into a tree, preventing wolves from catching the scent of blood and attempting to steal the carcass. Wolves can detect the scent of blood from over 3 kilometers away. To keep the wolves from scavenging, Rich had to maintain a vigilant watch over the deer. This frigid winter night was bound to feel endless. That evening, Rich ate venison sausage, while worrying about the wolf problem. Over the past 3 years, the wolf population in Gemstone Valley had doubled. The growing number of wolves has led to increasingly frequent encounters between humans and wolves, making life in the wilderness ever more perilous. As the old saying goes, what you fear most is what comes to pass. Rich's horse suddenly grew restless. By the horse's reaction, he knew immediately. The wolves had arrived. Rich had invested immense time in this hunt, so he would protect his venison at all costs. Ultimately, he fired a shot to scare the wolves away. After a night spent on edge, guarding his venison from the wolves until dawn, they could finally head home. Rich loaded the venison onto a horse already carrying a heavy burden and set off toward home. After traversing over 10 kilometers of rugged terrain, he arrived home. His wife, Diana, was waiting for him. Seeing her husband return laden with game, she grinned broadly with joy. Next, they had more work ahead: skinning, butchering, and making venison sausage. With this venison, even if heavy snow sealed them indoors later, they would have nothing to fear. In the vast wilderness of northern Maine, abundant with wild resources, this is a coveted dream destination for many hunters. Last year, Charlie risked his entire life savings to build his dwelling here. He aimed to sustain himself through hunting, but reality proved far more complex than he'd imagined. Not only did he fail to earn money, but he also exhausted his savings entirely. Becoming a hardy mountain man was his ideal, yet last year's setbacks remained vivid in his memory. Thus, this hunting season, his progress has been slow. If you assumed he'd been defeated by adversity, you'd be mistaken. He hasn't given up. Instead, he forged a new plan. To defy fate, Charlie resolved to pioneer a new trapping route. Pioneering a new trapping route is no easy feat. He would face unprecedented challenges. When trouble arose, Jim, often idle, would appear by his side. Together, they began final reconnaissance of the remote wilderness they'd newly selected. On the map, the two identified an area along the river, far from Charlie's home, and rarely frequented by humans. For this very reason, it was certain to host a large beaver population, with no competition from fellow trappers. An ideal hunting ground. The river meandering through the deep forest, with its countless tributaries, offered perfect habitat for beavers. But most hunters wouldn't risk venturing to such a distant location. The site was approximately 50 kilometers from Charlie's cabin. The new trapping route would bring greater dangers, and Charlie would need to traverse entirely on foot, shuttling between multiple trap lines. You might ask, why not use the snowmobile? This leads to a sorrowful tale. Since Charlie could barely make ends meet last year, he ultimately sold his beloved snowmobile. Therefore, this time, he had no choice but to camp at the new trapping site and rely on Jim to shuttle supplies back and forth. It must be said Jim is truly warm-hearted. Having such a friend made Charlie count himself fortunate. They drove south over 30 kilometers before halting on an old logging road. For the remaining dozen or so kilometers, Charlie would proceed on foot, With limited carrying capacity, he took only animal traps and essential tools, all vital for survival. After thanking and bidding farewell to his friend, Charlie embarked alone into the wilderness. Upon entering the wild, Charlie's first priority wasn't hunting, but securing his own survival. To evade the region's frequent winter blizzards, building a temporary shelter against the bitter cold became his immediate task. Charlie paused beside an unfrozen creek. According to him, such spots typically stayed warmer than the surroundings. After catching prey, it would stay fresh without freezing. If you found such a place, you mustn't pass it up. He first lit a fire for warmth, then began constructing the shelter. Charlie's shelter would adopt an A-frame structure, first finding a ridgepole, then leaning tightly packed deadwood diagonally on both sides to form 2 walls. The entire process wasn't easy. For this trip, he traveled light, not even bringing a chainsaw. Everything was done by hand. Though no 5-star hotel, he aimed to make it as comfortable as possible. By evening, heavy snow began falling. Charlie's shelter remained unfinished. He had to work faster to complete it before dark. After finishing both walls, he layered the sides and top thickly with pine boughs. The pine boughs would block the wind, preventing biting gusts from piercing gaps in the deadwood and invading the shelter's interior. To survive in this place, where temperatures plunged to 30 degrees below zero, the shelter had to retain sufficient warmth. Even basic survival would prove challenging. Through Charlie's relentless effort, he finally completed the entire cabin before nightfall. Now he could only hope this structure would see him through the night. To sustain himself through trapping, Charlie truly pushed his limits. To become a hardy mountain man, he abandoned his comfortable former job, spent all his savings, even sold his beloved snowmobile. It showed how passionately he loved mountain life. Such dedication commands deep respect. May he reap bountiful rewards. This trapping season, this is the shelter built by hunter Charlie himself. Having faced setbacks last trapping season, he ventured alone deep into the forest to pioneer a new trapping route, hoping to reverse his current decline. After spending one night here, Charlie ached down to his bones from the cold. Long-term residence in such a place could easily lead to ailments like rheumatism, but to make a living through trapping and become a true hardy mountain man, he resolved to persevere. He dared not slacken for a moment. While most of us still lingered in bed this morning, he had already set out with his gear. In this untouched wilderness, where no human had set foot, finding the right spots should yield abundant prey. His primary targets were beavers and pine martens. Pine martens had annual quotas, while beavers, being plentiful, could be trapped freely. Not long into his trek, Charlie followed tracks to the first pine marten trap location. For a fur trapper, the true skill lies in understanding animals, their habits, and routine pathways. All must be thoroughly studied to stand a chance of catching them. Charlie's trap differed from Marty's tank wealth. He set his foothold trap directly on a sapling, first nailing the bait to the tree, then placing the trap beneath the bait. Any prey attempting to reach the bait would be caught. To prevent snow from interfering, Charlie added a snow guard over the trap. He also applied lure bait, a specially formulated mixture designed to attract prey from afar. After setting the first trap, Charlie didn't pause. He immediately moved to scout the next location. After hours of effort, he had successfully set several pine marten traps. The overall situation looked promising. He needed to locate a beaver lodge to set his final trap of the day. Beavers must be tracked along waterways. This year's beaver pelt prices were strikingly high, reportedly reaching an astonishing $200. Recall that last trapping season, pelts sold for only $30 each. During frigid winters, beavers stay hidden beneath the ice, rarely emerging. Before winter sets in, beavers stockpile large quantities of wood to sustain themselves through the season. Between their lodge and this wood cache, beavers make multiple trips daily. Placing traps along this runway offers the optimal chance to catch them. A single wood cache sustains an entire colony. If successful, this trap could provide Charlie with a steady yield. Charlie's ice-breaking method was brutally straightforward, using a chainsaw to cut a rectangular opening, then scooping out the remaining ice blocks. Before the hole could refreeze, Charlie raced to deploy the trap. The foothold trap was secured to a stake and submerged about 1 meter beneath the ice. Finally, he packed snow and ice fragments back into the opening. Once refrozen, they would anchor the stake. After setting this trap, with daylight fading, he hurried back toward his shelter. Whether prey would be caught now depended entirely on tomorrow's luck. After a long winter night, Charlie awoke at daybreak. Today, he would check the trap set yesterday to test whether this new trap line held abundant resources. The success of this new route would determine whether his trapping career could continue. Thus, with considerable apprehension, Charlie began inspecting the traps. The first trap was empty. Disappointed, yet resigned, he moved to the next location. Wading through the icy creek, he reached the second trap, still devoid of any catch. After checking several traps, he had nothing to show. Now all hopes rested on the final beaver trap. Overnight, the trap set yesterday had frozen solid. He needed to break the ice to inspect it. The ice layer wasn't thick yet, so Charlie pierced it with an ice chisel. Opening a small hole, he used a flashlight to peer inside. This time, the trap didn't disappoint. A catch was secured inside. He hauled the prey out with effort. A massive beaver. Charlie clapped his hands in elation. Such size was truly uncommon. Beaver pelts fetch prices based on dimensions. This one would likely command premium value. The beaver renewed Charlie's confidence. This area would surely yield more prey, allowing this trapping season to take off. After resetting the trap, Charlie departed. He planned to return multiple times over the coming days to test for consistent results. In the following days, Charlie harvested several more beavers here. Initial estimates suggested the colony numbered around 12. Plenty of potential remained. Today, he returned to the trap site to check for fresh catches. Arriving at the spot, he cleared the surface ice and finally checked underwater. Charlie's luck held strong. Another beaver was caught, with each pelt now worth $200. Sustaining this pace could bring substantial profits. After resetting the trap, Charlie returned to camp. Just as he prepared to rest, he spotted injuries on a previously caught beaver. Inspecting closely, he found the pelt gnawed and ruined. Since pelts were his sole income, this meant a total loss. When he checked another beaver, he was infuriated. It had been chewed beyond recognition, rendered worthless. Judging by tooth marks and nearby tracks, Charlie concluded coyotes were the culprits. Though coyotes typically avoid humans, this winter's extreme cold drove them to take greater risks for food. Once they found a steady food source, they'd keep raiding until resources were exhausted. Unless eliminated, Charlie risked losing everything. So he resolved to track down the coyote and remove the threat. He took a section of dried wood, planted it vertically as bait, and placed a foothold trap at its base. Finally, he sprinkled pungent liquid over the wooden bait, a lure rumored to attract coyotes, defending their territory. Could it be wolf urine? Before leaving, Charlie erased all human traces and departed. After a night, he returned to the site. Still some distance away, he halted. The trap had caught something. Unarmed, he dared not approach recklessly. A live coyote posed real danger. As a precaution, Charlie fashioned a sturdy wooden club for potential combat. When he gripped the club, ready to confront the coyote, he found it lying motionless on the ground, apparently already deceased. After prodding the carcass twice to confirm its death, he finally relaxed. Truthfully, Charlie disliked trapping coyotes, but survival necessitated it. Both species fought to endure. Human ingenuity simply proved sharper. Charlie continued laboring tirelessly in this wilderness. Despite repeated setbacks, his resolve remained unshaken. He believed firmly in his ability to thrive in this untamed land. In the near future, in the uninhabited wilderness of northern Maine, Hunter Charlie had lived alone here for 4 weeks. His trapping work during this period had gone remarkably well. Today was his scheduled meeting day with Jim. Charlie would hand over all currently caught prey and receive supplies needed for the next 4 weeks. His previous provisions were completely exhausted, leaving just 1 slice of bread. Without resupply today, Charlie faced starvation. Having a friend like Jim financially comfortable with ample free time, yet willing to help, made Charlie count himself fortunate. Without this loyal companion, many of Charlie's plans would be near impossible. Early that morning, Charlie gathered empty bottles and containers to give to Jim. Most crucial, however, were the harvested animals. Except for 2 unprocessed beavers, the rest had been skinned. Learning from last time's coyote damage, Charlie made adjustments. To eliminate scent, he bagged all pelts and buried them under half a meter of snow. Even if predators came, they'd never find them. Charlie retrieved these items, loading a sled to capacity. By conservative estimates, his 4-week beaver catch already exceeded last season's entire harvest. With beaver pelt prices exceptionally high this year, Charlie finally had a chance to turn things around. The rendezvous point with Jim lay over 10 kilometers from camp. Distance mattered less than crossing an ice-covered river. Due to heavy water flow, this river rarely froze solid, frequently developing hazardous overflow zones. Finding safe ice crossings proved difficult. He scouted for a slow current section to attempt the traverse. Snow-covered ice hid underlying conditions. Progress required probing inch by inch with an ice chisel. The search detoured Charlie significantly, but his effort paid off. He found a viable spot. Though the ice seemed adequately thick, substantial risk remained. To protect his harvest, Charlie decided to send the sled across first. Weighing roughly 70 kilograms, its wide surface area distributed weight. As long as the ice wasn't critically thin, it should hold. With a forceful push, he successfully landed the sled on the opposite bank. The sled crossed easily. Charlie's passage proved harder. Inching forward, he nearly succeeded. But as he took the final step, the ice gave way, plunging him into frigid water. Luckily, he was near shore. Climbing out required little effort. Submersion at -20°C was life-threatening. Charlie's lower body soaked through, cold piercing straight to his bones. Wet clothes would freeze within 15 minutes, highly likely triggering hypothermia. To survive, he needed immediate fire for warmth, or risk losing consciousness within half an hour. Charlie carried easily ignitable firewood, making lighting straightforward. After warming by the flames, his body temperature normalized, clothes gradually drying. This incident proved that after accidental ice water immersion, instant heat sources are the most effective rescue. The mishap severely delayed meeting Jim. Charlie remained far from the agreed location. If Jim turned back after failing to find him, Charlie would face disaster. He devised a contingency. If Jim had entered the forest, he'd light a smoke signal. Spotting the smoke, Jim could pinpoint his position. Charlie acted immediately. Covering the fire with green pine boughs, he generated thick smoke. Billowing skyward, peering into the distance, he hoped for Jim's silhouette. Waiting felt interminable, but worthwhile for a good outcome. Before long, a snowmobile engine echoed afar. Charlie erupted in excitement, shouting wildly. After 4 solitary weeks, he finally saw another human. The long-separated friends embraced warmly. Typically reserved, Charlie's words poured out like a floodgate. Even the normally boisterous Jim couldn't interject. Harvest was transported out. Supplies delivered in. After exchanging goods, the friends parted again. With 4 more trapping weeks ahead, Charlie felt certain this season would bring abundant rewards. In the wilderness of northern Maine, hunter Charlie inspected his traps daily. This trapping season had yielded remarkable success so far. Pioneering a new trap line was a high-stakes gamble, but Charlie clearly emerged the winner. He would spend this day covering his 15-kilometer trap route. It promised to be grueling. Many traps awaited inspection, plus unforeseen challenges en route. Few could endure such demands, but this man, striving to become a hardy mountain soul, pushed steadily toward his goal. He remained convinced that persistence and effort would bring success. Arriving at the first trap, he found an auspicious start. A small ferret caught inside. European royalty. Once prized white winter coats, made from costly ferret pelts. But times had changed. A single ferret now fetched merely $10. After resetting here, Charlie hurried to the next trap. The second held a pine marten, boosting earnings by $210. Heading further north, He soon learned no luck lasts forever. Charlie was no exception. While cheerfully approaching the next trap, a blizzard struck without warning. Temperatures plummeted instantly. Driving snow mixed with fierce winds whited out the landscape. Visibility dropped below 2 meters, and wind-whipped flakes stung his eyes. Without immediate shelter, Charlie risked freezing to death. His top priority became constructing emergency refuge. With no time for deliberation, swift action meant survival. He utilized a fallen tree to build an angled tree wall, facing the wind direction. Sheltering behind it blocked most gusts. Construction itself posed risks. Manual labor in such cold quickly drenched Charlie in sweat. Moisture accelerated body heat loss, potentially triggering hypothermia. Fortunately, the storm proved brief. Winds soon subsided. Charlie immediately lit a fire for warmth, restoring depleted body heat. In such temperatures, fire became life's most vital element. He needed to dry thoroughly before returning to camp. Traveling damp over distance carried equal danger. Once rewarmed, he extinguished the fire and turned toward camp. Returning revealed devastation. Debris scattered everywhere. Undoubtedly, the gale's doing. As we've noted before, when fortunate, don't ride too high. When struggling, don't hang your head. Persistent effort. Life will grant what you seek. 4 weeks elapsed swiftly. Charlie's departure neared. His harvest this period exceeded $7,000 in value. Today marked his final forest day. These 2 months held both bitterness and sweetness, but overall, they comprised a rewarding chapter. Having taken so much game here, Charlie almost regretted leaving. Today he'd enjoy a hearty meal before commencing closing tasks. Main regulations prohibited permanent structures in this wilderness. Charlie must dismantle his shelter before departing. Loading gear onto his sled, he dragged the disassembled timbers to the creek center. There he ignited the woodpile. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, leaving no trace behind. The creek's isolation from other trees eliminated wildfire concerns. For extra caution, Charlie monitored the burn until flames nearly consumed the wood. Finally home, rest remained elusive. Pelts from the wild required processing before market sale. This year's buyers favored rounded beaver pelts, so Charlie shaped them accordingly, stretching pelts into rounds, nailing them taut to boards, leaving air gaps between fur and wood. Once dried, they'd be market ready. This trapping season undoubtedly crowned Charlie with success. Despite numerous hardships and dangers, his resilience overcame them all. The title, Hardy Mountain Man, was truly well earned. Surely in the near future, Charlie will thrive in this wilderness. In the wilderness of northern Alaska,